and based on the amount of sleeping you do and the sounds that it takes in, more Pokemon, when you wake up, more Pokemon will reveal itself.
AI saved my life. Rob and Ryan Reynolds, the owners of Wrexham AFC, telling me
Welcome. So, welcome to another podcast. Today we're wearing caps. We're both wearing caps, backwards and forwards. I have a preference for backwards caps these days, which is bad because then everybody behind me can see the branding, but not in front of me. So for some reason, I prefer it. I've actually been thinking, I want to figure out if there is a better shape hat for my head. And if there was an app that could scan my face and based off the shape of my face could tell me what perfect hat that I should wear. Because I think, so these hats are like the ones that have the, like the slope, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the ones that have the high top bits and the flatter things, because these are like curved, right? The flatter hats. I think that might be better for me. So like the American like ones that are like a bigger front. Yeah. So I'd like to find an app that could measure my face and tell me the perfect style hat to wear, and then print kind of thing, right? Like hats on demand, and you could choose the right hat for your head, because they do it for like, you know, like Trilby's, like proper fancy hats. They'll be like, hey, this hat looks better on your head, or like the size of it or whatever, or maybe a cowboy hat. So I'm like, could there be like an elevated thing? There happens to be a hat shop in the O2 Arena, so maybe I should go and be like, hey, what hat do you recommend for this head?
I guess before AI, it was probably just someone that actually understands heads and hats.
Yeah, because there must be somebody, because people understand like face shapes and body shapes, right? And what you should wear, colors, stripes, blah, 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 you know?
Yeah.
So surely that also works with head sizes, I hope. So
most likely. This is definitely an interesting topic for the pod.
Well, let me jump into the second interesting topic. Following the human body, we've gone from heads to head on a pillow sleeping. There is a new app. So you're familiar with Pokemon, right? Pokemon had Pokemon Go. Do you remember Pokemon Go, which is basically an ability to, it will use your actual location, and you would hunt Pokemon in the real world through like an AR, augmented reality app. They've actually...
do people still do that, do you reckon?
I think they do, yeah. So there was this massive story out in America where there was loads of people running around Central Park to find Charizard, which is like one of their most rare or rarest Pokemon. Now, like a couple of months back, they've released a sleeping app. So you remember the character Snorlax, I think it is. I think Snorlax, which is this big sleeping dude. You use it to track your sleeping, but it has to be on. So you say, hey, I'm going to go to sleep. I have the phone on. I turn it upside down so the screen is not shining. And it basically listens to you sleeping. And based on the amount of sleeping you do and the sounds that it takes in, more Pokemon, when you wake up, more Pokemon will reveal itself. So I'm like, this is so bizarre. So I'm like, there is a pattern here, like of basically using some sort of human metric, aka like your physical location or you running around somewhere, right? Now they're using sleep and collecting that data. And the narrative is that like, oh, we're doing sleep research on Pokemon and you need to help us. And the more that you sleep, the more that we understand how Pokemon sleep or something. So it's like this research kind of like Professor Oak type thing. And loads of people are using it. So I downloaded it because I'm always curious with these things. I started to like see what's what. And it's like, yeah, you literally have to turn it on and basically put it next to your bed and have it like actually like active. So not like sleep mode, not like turn off the iPhone, like actually active. and it would listen to your sleep. Now, it does say...
How do you know it's not subliminal messaging, like talking to you to see
You won't
must
know,
buy
will you?
more Pokemon cards?
You won't know. So I'm like, how do these ideas come about? Like blending something to a human metric, I find is fascinating. Again, any sort of intellectual property like Pokemon, people are like addicted to kind of like getting more Pokemon. The whole like setup is already there. So I'm like, what else? What else can you like measure to be able to reveal more of something? Like we can measure
every time you burn your food.
yeah, like every time you lose weight, do you see more Pokemon? Like anytime I've noticed that certain apps can track the nutritional values, which actually can then be in your health segment within your iPhone. So could it be like every time you have vitamin D or vitamin C or whatever, like a particular Pokemon turns up or something? I'm like, so fascinating how again, nobody had been running around as when they had Pokemon Go with the augmented reality stuff, right? So that was a really positive thing that basically encouraged a bunch of people to run around. So this sleep one, so fascinating. I have no idea what they're going to do with the data. It definitely means that people are going to have like high usage, right? Because they're going to have it on for 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours of like sleeping around with it. So, lol. So I'm like, the internet's funny. People with IP are funny. Like, again, it's just another way to get Pokemon into your brain. Another way to kind of like Pokemon alarm clock, because that's technically what it is, right? It listens to you sleeping, but you can set an alarm in the app. So then it would wake you up, probably with some sort of Pokemon noise, because they've got all the IP. So I'm like, that's so fascinating. So fascinating.
I like how you're on point as well, because where is Pokemon originally from?
Is it Japan?
Japan. Because it feels like I'm watching some sort of Japan movie, because when you're talking, you'd stop and then it keeps on talking.
Delay?
So
Yeah.
We're on point. It feels like you're dubbed, because you must be speaking
adding to the
right
Japanese style. So I've not set this up in time, but what I was hoping to do is join, and maybe I'll do it next week, join one of these calls as an avatar. So there's this app, which is essentially like TikTok, but the person in the videos is not a human. It's an avatar version, right? It's kind of like Memojis, like Apple Memojis. It's an avatar. So I can create this avatar, and then I can Memoji style like talk and stuff, and the avatar will like talk and move and things as if it's a live feed, right? So I can do TikTok-esque videos as that avatar. So I was thinking it would be great if one time I was the avatar in here, because you can attach it to OBS, which is a streaming piece of software. So then hopefully I could stream that into Riverside, and then it would basically be my audio, but the avatar speaking live. So I'm like, super fascinating. Again, if you think of all these like introvert gamers, people who love characters, if I could be a Pokemon, like if I could be Charizard in a vlog, like, or in a video or on my socials, then one, I might be more comfortable sharing like stuff or being there, and I could build a community in the very same way that people go to Comic-Con, which is essentially a convention hall of like board games or computer games or like any sort of games or TV and film, where people get dressed up. And certain people, there's a certain section of people that get dressed up as like human-sized animals, like foxes and stuff, like fox costumes and things. So I'm like, so fascinating, this like technology, AI, and just like the cleverness of things. So it's all running just off your iPhone, and it's just looking at you and translating you into this avatar. So there's social videos of these avatars. And I'm like, this is so fascinating. Again, on this podcast, we're very pro AI, because we see all the benefits and and the innovation and stuff.
Well, don't say that, because in 10 years' time, when they review our content and then we realize we don't like it anymore, or whatever.
I will always be on like the enjoying AI side of things for sure. I'll say that now as a prediction. They say you always have to have podcast and content always works where you've got a hard line thing. And I'm like, AI is great. AI is amazing. And then you should be like easily persuaded though. Like, so you're staunch in your kind of like opinion, but you can be persuaded. So I'm like, yeah, AI is amazing. So what you...
tagline, AI saved my life.
It's definitely enhancing for sure. So what's cooking up in your dome?
Well, you did the tangent of head, sleeping, then Japan, and jumped up, which I was going to go sleeping or dreams.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to actually take a step back because you went at a different angle than I was anticipating, which is fine. So I had a fun dream the other day. It is nothing of that much value, but I just thought it's more just interesting to share. I had a dream of Rob and Ryan Reynolds, the owners of Wrexham AFC, telling me to let people come into this room, me and a bunch of other people, to let people come into this room and then shoot them dead.
Oh, no.
And I was like...
Caveat.
But it was weird because it was like, it felt like it was as if you were in a live COD game. So it wasn't even if you were feeling like you were killing anyone. It was more you were just killing bots or something. And it was funny because it was like, or not the killing part, but it was like 2 waves came in. But then on the third one, he said, don't shoot yet. So I was like, okay, because I think we all had earpieces in. But then I spotted a best friend. So then I wandered over to him and I was like, anyone with these earpieces in has got a live gun, so that could go off at any moment. So he's like, right, I'm going to take my family, and then just like went straight out. So I was like, sweet, I saved one person. And then I woke up.
Well, firstly, we love Wrexham AFC. We love Rob and Ryan, and we love the Sunny podcast. And this has nothing to do with our opinion of them. But somehow you must have watched. Did you watch some Call of Duty YouTube videos or something to like instill that seed in your brain? So
I did watch John Wick a couple of days earlier.
That is literally it.
So that could have...
That's the inception.
That on top of keeping up with Rob and Ryan over in America.
So you've inceptioned. So I guess you've been inceptioned by Rob and Ryan's personalities, and also
as they're like the hotel looking after me as the John Wick.
And you're like the security guard, and there's what 10, 20 other security guards, and there's what 50 people, or is it like a 2-3 security guards, and there's like 10 people?
I'm not entirely sure. It sort of felt like there's 5 to 10 teams, but then you'd let in about 10 to 20 people at a time, as if it was like waves of people.
It's so interesting, and I bet you felt that it was quite vivid and very nice of you just to tell one person, and not the whole room. Like, hey, everybody, get out! It's a trap. Priorities, right? You don't want to stampede.
Yeah, I think the weird thing is, it just felt like everyone else was like a bot to some extent, and it must have brought the realism of like, oh, I actually recognize someone in this room. This isn't a game anymore.
So it brought you into reality, the fact that you recognize somebody, so then you were able to adjust to be like, hang on a minute, this is morally wrong. I'm going to readjust.
Which is interesting, because actually a lot of my dreams I have zero control over. It's as if I'm watching a movie, but through my eyes, but I don't have control over my body. So the fact that I can sort of, I don't know if I changed it or I trusted my body's memory in knowing who that person is
usually,
in my dreams.
I agree. I also I can't control my dreams, but usually if I'm able to, it's because I've had some sort of like crazy Super Saiyan level, like fight to be able to control something. So I'm kind of like, I wonder if, again, because we always love talking about like the deep narrative to things. I'm like, what does that represent? And basically you were able to overcome that in your dream, which is a representation of you overcoming something in real life, because you basically had the mind focus to be able to like control your dream. So then it's basically your body's telling you, even though you're trapped in this situation where you're forced to basically kill people, you do have an aspect of control and you're able to save people now, even though it's a difficult situation. So I'm like, what's the deeper meaning potentially of, is this you psychology subconsciously overcoming something, which is a difficult situation because you can control it.
I've been watching those Diaries of a CEO recently. The last two, I've seen two. I don't know if they're the last two. I think the last one was a will.i.am one, which I watched, which was interesting. And then the other one was a guy that I think used to work for Google, and is like warning everyone of AI and basically saying we're all doomed, but we have to do something about it. Vibes. But it was interesting because I think with will.i.am, because Stephen Bartlett seems, even though he's engaged with AI, he seems very fearful of it. But then it was interesting seeing will.i.am because he was like, well, imagine the first person that started a fire. Loads of people would be like, oh, that could cook something. But there's the odd percentage that would be like, oh, that could burn down a village.
Yeah.
And then it would burn down a village. And then you'd create a car. Most people are like, oh, it's helpful for transport. Someone else is like, I can run people over with. And it's like, with everything, he's like, AI is classed as a tool, just as like a car, just as like a fire. So the bit that we should be worried about is the people aspect of whose hands is it falling into. But I guess what Bartlett was trying to communicate is what happens if it, because I guess with a tool you need a person using the power of Z tool, fire, car, whatever. There's an element of, I'm using this tool, so then the trust is in the person.
Yep.
But obviously, if AI becomes that entity, and then he's like, I'm going to use cryptocurrency to bring down the world or whatever. But it's one of those things. It's sort of like, I watched Age of Ultron, the Avengers one, which I don't know if it's the second or third or whatever. And it's going on similar topics of basically you've got one robot that wants to destroy everything because it's like, what's the point? People like, it scans through history and it's like, yeah, people are the problem. And then you got another one that's a little bit more developed and a little bit more compassionate, and it's like, no, but we should still let the people have a choice. If they want to kill people, that's fair enough, but a lot of them do good. You just have the odd one or two that then drags people into the wars and stuff like that. And I guess it's weird to think that film was, don't know, it's probably like 10 years now, thinking about it. To then be like, well, we're sort of in those midst of what the people are saying about AI and the advancements and how do we regulate it.
It reminds me of two things. One is WorldCoin, and I'll come back to that one. The second one is, isn't there a film with Christian Bale in it? Maybe it's not Christian Bale, or Tom Cruise, where it's basically they have these three kind of like human, like super intelligent humans that they've basically got hooked up to this machine, and their dreams essentially are predictions of crimes that are going to happen. And basically what happens is there's this police force that stop crimes before they happen because they've been predicted by these three individuals that dream them up. So what happens is this police guy, let's say it's Christian Bale, because I can't remember who it actually is. Let's say that it's him. Like one day, the three like superhumans in this like floating water tank have a dream about him killing somebody. So what they do is like, cool, we've got our new like target list. We need to stop this guy. So basically he then is trying to run away from that being caught, and because he's like, I'm not going to do this. This doesn't make sense, kind of thing. And I think AI is very much embedded in, for example, policing, right? If they use AI to predict crime, then the difficulty is like, if you are biased to begin with and you are arresting more black people, for example, then it will predict that black people are going to create more crimes. Now, it all depends on if you are doing that in an actual, genuine, fair way, or if there's a higher probability of something based on personal prejudices, kind of thing, like a prejudice of an individual or a group of individuals, which we know is true. So it's like, yeah, you want to remove it from any sort of predictive things. But then I'll spin it into this other thing. One person is basically taking all the cameras that police are wearing in the States and running it through an AI model to basically pull out trends on when you can de-escalate things. So what works and what doesn't work. So, for example, the person that asks more questions is likely to de-escalate a situation, right? The person that explains themselves more, aka the police person, the policewoman or the policeman that explains themselves more, have better outcomes in the video. And then it's like, basically, females are always better at de-escalation and so forth. So, like, can we put more female police officers? So they're using that data that's being collected to sift through it like big data style, to then be able to coach and educate police forces to be able to have a better relationship with the community and have better outcomes, right? With basically less crime and so forth. So I'm like, that's basically like, one, we could basically do it to predict crime, which probably is going to have bad things because, again, we've had skewed input. And then the other thing is like, can we like enhance officers and train officers so the chief of the precinct will be able to have this like analysis of all of my officers and be like, okay, cool, we basically are not explaining ourselves properly, or we're getting like agitated because we're not asking enough questions, or we're like escalating things more than we should. So let's use that as training to change people's attitudes and change people's minds. So I thought that's fascinating. Let me come on to WorldCoin, and then you can comment on anything that's come in. WorldCoin is from the makers of OpenAI, the Sam Altman, I think his name is. It's a world currency, kind of like a cryptocurrency type thing. And to be able, and it's a proof of if you're a human or not. So they have these orbs that they've created that are actual like physical orbs that scan your retina, your eye, and everybody has, I think this is true, that like retinas are unique and a fingerprint's unique too. Like nobody has your fingerprints and nobody has your retina. I think that's true for retinas for sure. So you use this orb and they're dotted around the world and you can turn up for this orb to scan your eye, for your eye then to be put into a database, and then it basically gives you like a code to prove that you're human, because an eye can't be, well, today it can't be replicated, right? A retina can't be replicated, and that's a unique code. So then it unlocks this ability to show that you have proof that you're a human. And then they're going to have this world coin attributed to it as well. So there's like this global currency that everybody will have some money, basically, through this world coin thing. And again, we all know that the difficulty with that is like, let's say that someone gets your iris. There is no technology that I know that can destroy your like eye to skew it. But for example, face recognition, you could have facial reconstruction kind of stuff, right? You can alter it with plastic surgery or with prosthetics, which would skew a computer. But an iris, an eye thing can't be skewed. So if that was leaked into the wrong hands, what could that, or like, how does that happen? Again, in some countries, they actually are scanning number plates or whatever because you're speeding, right? And instantly your number plate is attached to your WeChat account, which is basically your bank account, and they'll deduct £60 because you were speeding or whatever. So it's like all integrated in this technology thing. Let alone whether or not if you do a crime, and we use facial recognition, and your face is basically used to pay for things. So we have it on the database. So then we can like deduct money from you, or come and find you, or say we wanted this person. We have all your facial recognition stuff and all your data.
So interesting, because I remember going to an event in Colton Bay. Ministry of Sound Music was in the queue waiting to get some drinks, and it basically had a sign saying card only. And there's a guy next to us that we sort of half got to know whilst we were there, me and my mate, and he was holding cash. And I said, "Oh, just for a heads up," because I didn't want him to wait in the queue for ages to then get there to then complain and like take up time where everyone's already waiting a long time. That you can sort yourself out now that it's a card machine. And he literally went on a massive rant how we should be using money because once everything's a card, it'll basically be like this social currency that I think is more implemented in China. Of like, if you do something bad, you get deducted points. If you do something good, you get more points. And basically, like, you might as well pull down your pants and use some vivid words or whatever. And it was funny because he was like, he was proper preaching, like convicted,
and then he pulled out his card.
Got to the bar, pulled out his card and paid, and I was like, "Well, pull down your pants, mate." And it's funny how it's like, even if you want to be, what was it, like pro cash, for example, you're not going to beat a whole event where there's thousands of people that you have to pay card, because at the end of the day, it's like the Little Britain computer says no. Like, they have no cash to do anything with it, and they don't want cash because then anyone could steal it. So of course they just want it to get sent to whatever bank account, because it makes sense, because then they can just order, and it's all a system that's more straightforward than you have some money and then you got to take it to the bank and then you got to order stuff. It's like, it cuts out all that sort of process to some extent, and hopefully it'll be quicker because you're not dealing with change. But I just thought it was hilarious of like, he's basically like a prophet in the Old Testament, but then bowed down to the ruler of a card machine instantly.
I think it's fascinating, this whole so I don't disagree. Like those concepts do exist, as in, you know, deducting points and kind of like barring somebody from using something because government doesn't like how you're behaving, and because they're so interlinked into your infrastructure of banking and so forth, that they can stop you from flying, like, and all the rest of it, right? If they don't like you. So I understand that stuff, but it's challenging. I was thinking, I was chatting with Kimmer before about how do you create unity? The easiest way to create unity is have a common enemy. So what's this common enemy that we're going to create? And is the common enemy basically something that is fictitious enough that helps your cause? So for example, if you were a cryptocurrency exchange, could you say the common enemy is the government and the government is trying to control us, therefore buy this cryptocurrency now? And it's like it's very fascinating how cool we're all shifting away from government control, but then are we actually shifting towards manipulation of another sorts? And that's where you get into the idea of like just being generally cynical. So for example, these cryptocurrency exchanges, there was this massive, was it FTX or something like that, which blew everybody's money and was just spending everybody's money. So the CEOs are just like rinsing your cash. But yeah, cool, your cryptocurrency. And I think they were faking the returns that you were getting on your cryptocurrency or something like that. So I'm like, cool, yes, you're shifting away from government to cryptocurrency, but then having the right cryptocurrency that has the right stability. Again, I think cryptocurrency is interesting and I am fascinated in it. And I have had cryptocurrency. I don't happen to have any now. So I'm like, I like basically both things, because everybody is going to tell you from the loudest person shouting, right? Like, oh, don't trust those people over here. And these people over here be like, don't trust those people over there. So you just like want to, again, it's all about like critical thinking and your own reflections, like self-reflection and your own critical kind of like decision-making, rather than being swayed by anything too loud.
I think that's the thing, is like the power of the government probably in the average person is massively diminishing. But I think it's probably we're handing over the power to then tech companies. Because even though apparently the UK government is knocking on the door of Apple and basically saying, can we have backdoor access towards FaceTime and iMessage rather than it being encrypted? And basically Apple are like, no, because that's one of the reasons why people like us, is that security element. So then they've come to the conclusion of, if apparently it's going to be a very long process anyway, but if that were to happen, if they let in the UK behind the back doors, they would have access to the whole world stuff. so they can't do that. And B, it would then invite all the other countries to look in the back door of stuff. So they're basically like, if it does come to that end, we'll just have to cancel iMessage and FaceTime for UK providers, which is like, that's crazy. Obviously, I know they wouldn't want to do that because then it would affect just things, because what they want to do is just have the same product for everyone and that advancing for everyone. But it'd be crazy just to be like, the fact that they've got, how many people got iPhones? Like, people could be skint and they've got an iPhone and a Liverpool or Man U shirt. That's what I was spotting in a local town recently. It's like, you could be skint, but you probably got those things. But if someone just turned off, like, now you can't use FaceTime, or now you can't use messages. Obviously, I know a third party one would come in, and probably the UK government would try and work with a company for you be able to see it or whatever. But it's like, that is some powerful stuff of just how much people that would affect people.
Yeah, and this
or this would give the strength to something like Telegram or WhatsApp or all the other sort of third parties.
It's so fascinating because there's so many layers to this. Obviously, everything has a different degree. So, for example, government be able to look at messages. Broadly speaking, that's a counter-terrorism, like anti-crime approach, right? But then, obviously, I don't know how.
Well, that's doing the assumption. That's what they're
exactly,
looking for.
right? Mass control, like trend kind of data of like sentiment analysis stuff, right? That could be one thing. But then, did you know that basically Amazon have started to remove information from their emails? So when they send you your email to say your delivery is ready, Google isn't able, if you use Gmail, Google isn't able to scrape that email to see that you're buying stuff from Amazon and buying X particular products and then showing you ads. So I'm like, nobody's talking about that because we all kind of like are okay with that now. So will there come a time where we're okay with these things because we over time realize I would rather have a really good email service, aka Gmail, and I'd rather buy stuff from Amazon. So of course it's going to send me emails or whatever, right? I'm not going to be kind of going into a shop and buying it physically so nobody knows, let alone card companies will know that anyway, right? So I'm like, that's really interesting that Amazon have like decreased the amount of information that comes in the email. That's why I'm always annoyed when I say, I don't know what this delivery is, so I have to click in and go to Amazon to see, hey, it's delivery X, because Amazon are trying to avoid giving Google extra metadata.
That's interesting. Yeah, because that's what William was talking about, is basically who should own data. And really it should be the individual, but we're not sort of there yet. Because at the end of the day, if you're the one giving loads of data to Google for then someone to find you to sell you something, let's say sell you an exercise bike because you wanted it to get fit and it's £1,000, they're making profit off you sharing data. But if you went to market research, you might get a 5 for it, whatever, and then they find out that you need an exercise bike, and then it's £1,000, but at least we've paid for your data in the process. Or is it because you're freely giving us your data and we know you're going to buy anything we put in front of you, should we give you a 20% discount on anything we put in front of you? Because really we should be paying for your data, because I guess it's finding... Oh, Dan has dropped off online. I guess it's finding out how can you link up people that are attached to what the product you're trying to do to who wants to buy it. But yeah, so that is all interesting. I'm not sure how long I should monologue until Dan is back, but hopefully he will be able to join us soon.
And we are back after the interruption. I basically didn't have my charger to hand, so I lost power, and I also didn't want to cut across what you were saying to keep fluidity, but it is what it is. Technology, eh? It wasn't that the government shut us off. Maybe people will be like, the government shut them off. So it wasn't the government. It was just my lack of planning and lack of the fact that I didn't have it plugged in. But lots of data privacy chat and technology and tracking and all sorts of stuff today. So yeah, it's very interesting. Final thought, just to end on a different topic. Jake Paul has a documentary out, or like a one episode on Netflix that's also really good. Again, very inspiring, very strategic, very clever, very business minded. So yeah, you should watch that as well, because we're always about good podcasts, good kind of like documentary things about mindset and about seeing people's process behind the scenes. So yeah, I'd recommend watching that. Sweet. And on that note, see you next week.
Bye.
Keep on hammering those nails. Bye.